Hey everyone, it's Evan Kirstel with another one of my amazing followers on the show today. I'd love to introduce you to Christopher Thomas of Spark Cognition, a really cool company down south, headquartered out of Austin. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you today, Evan?
I am well. I'm here in Boston with yet another snowstorm on the way, so we're in the deep midst of winter here. But you are not. Where are you calling in from?
I'm actually in Raleigh-Durham area of North Carolina, and so this coming Friday, it's going to be about 70 and sunny. So it's my
Sure, rub
anniversary,
it
so
in.
that'll work out well.
Rub it in, why don't you? But we'll get back to that later on. Tell me, who is Spark Cognition for folks watching, and what do you do exactly?
So we do quite a bit. We're an artificial intelligence company. We started back in 2013. Amir Hussain, our CEO, looking to bring artificial intelligence into all areas of industry to help solve complicated problems for different industries and customers. And so we do things in renewables, oil and gas, wind, finance. We do all sorts of things leveraging artificial intelligence to solve complicated problems. About
So
5 years
speaking of a
ago,
complicated problem,
yeah,
right? I mean, security is traditionally a
yeah.
very complicated problem, getting more complicated. So what does it mean by adding a cognitive layer to security?
So back in 2016, they looked at how we would start how leverage artificial intelligence to solve cybersecurity challenges, right? And so one of those most obvious areas is zero-day malware. And so what we wanted to do was use artificial intelligence and machine learning to build cognitive models to start analyzing both malicious and benign files and take some of that like a trained security analyst would do and bring machine learning and artificial intelligence to start being able to detect and prevent against zero-day malware and malicious files. And so that's what we've been able to create within our own cybersecurity product.
That's amazing and much needed. I mean, I looked at some of your data and some of the industry data. A new cyber attack happens
Mm-hmm.
every 39 seconds.
Yeah.
Ransomware is in the news and the headlines literally every day, and terrible schools and hospitals. And clearly, our current approach isn't working, right?
Well,
So
that's why artificial intelligence and machine learning are so wonderful. Is that you know typically what we see is there's more threat vectors, that's more security controls, right? So you end up with firewalls and sensors and endpoints and proxies and gateways and more alerts, creating more and more activities for analysts and trained analysts. And so if you can't create more and more people, which we know there's a job shortage in cybersecurity, or shortage of trained people, then you have to start looking at other ways of solving the problem. You have to find other ways of replicating what's in an analyst's brain and being able to prevent and detect, right, and protect your end users. And so that's where artificial intelligence and machine learning really can come in, and where we've shown tremendous success and tremendous technique, patented approaches to creating and updating machine learning models to help us detect zero-day malware and prevent cyber attacks.
interesting. I love the idea of replicating what's in an analyst's brain. I think about 30% is probably Mountain Dew, and the rest is something on Reddit. But that's an interesting objective in and of itself. Um,
Yeah.
so one of the challenges is on the small and medium sized business
Mhm.
world has sort of been left out of this whole world of advanced cybersecurity protection.
Mhm.
They don't have a CSO on staff. They
No.
don't really understand. They typically outsource, maybe understand the threat landscape and even where to start. It's such a complex area. Um, so you're working with a lot of SMBs, right, in terms of enabling them to
Yeah.
secure their environment.
Yeah, absolutely. With my background, and you look at the different levels of companies and enterprises, right? Small businesses, when you look at them, they're always, well, no one's going to bother messing with me. No one's going to attack me. But really, they don't get to make that decision, right? It's not up to them whether they're a target. And so what we find is they need that same level of protections, but you have to give it to them in a way that they can understand and make sense of that, right? If you take a traditional or an EDR solution that's out in the market today, and you try to give it to a small business company, 5, 10 users, even 50, can they make sense of all the alerts and the details that are coming out of that system? So you've got to find a way to make it user friendly for the small and mid-sized business, and to show them value and why they need to go invest in it. It's not a fear thing. We want them to start investing in cybersecurity as a a fact of doing business, right? You have to invest in this. It's a business decision. It's not a fear solution, right? And so when we look at those, we see small business offers, we see mid-sized enterprises, all up into large enterprises that are looking for new techniques and new ways of combating ransomware, malware, et cetera. And they're looking at technologies that are starting to leverage more and more artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And what does it mean for those businesses to adopt AI? Is this sort of transparent to them, or is it how do you leverage data and AI and machine learning in your solution? It's kind of a really novel approach. You have data sets, I imagine, that you've gathered that look at this vast threat landscape, and this is new to me. So describe the solution, if you will, to the
Sure.
problem.
So we'll maybe take a step back. So when most people hear antivirus or an APP solution, they're typically thinking of what we all kind of grew up with in the last couple decades, which is a signature-based approach, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the signature-based approach is I have to see something that's bad to create a signature to say, this is bad, look for it again. Next time you see it, stop it, block it, quarantine it, do something with it. And so the idea that you have to keep seeing it to be able to defend against it kind of limits our ability to actually be proactive, right? And think,
To say the least, right? I mean,
right.
I've heard people saying it's not even a value now to install antivirus software. Like there's no meaningful protection anymore, given the
Right.
modern threats we see.
Yeah, the traditional approach to it, I mean, you're always behind and you're getting
Mhm.
signature updates once every couple of days and you're still behind. And
Mhm.
so that's where, with Spark Cognition, we took the approach of let's go out and start using artificial intelligence and machine learning. Let's go get hundreds of thousands of samples a night of both good files and bad files. And let's start analyzing them, right? And let's start getting highly skilled data scientists to look at that and train models and train data sets so that we're not looking for a particular signature, right? We're not looking for the word the in this particular textbook. It's always my example I use. You're going to get a lot of noise. And the noise means somebody's got to go look at it and make a decision based on it. And it's probably wasting a lot of time. But you don't want to be looking for a specific string. What you want to be looking for is combinations of things, right? What happens in a particular file header or within a file byte size, a hash, something that is indicative of a malicious file. Now start building models that leverage that so that it can scan files thousands of times faster than we can, less than 20 milliseconds. It can make a determination this file is good or bad. That's an important thing. And we're doing all of that resonant on the endpoint. So another benefit is you want to start getting that artificial intelligence machine learning down to the endpoint, to that user experience, so that it doesn't have to rely on cloud, right? That's a delay. Somebody clicks on a Word doc, clicks on an executable, they want that to run. They don't want to wait for it to go all the way out to a cloud to come back. And so that's how we started leveraging artificial intelligence to really bring that level of capability and complexity and detection capability down to the endpoints to eliminate a lot of the noise, false positives and false negatives that end up at your analyst desk that they have to go work on.
Fascinating. A lot of your focus is on zero-day threats. Explain what is a zero-day threat to our neophyte sort of listeners. What does it mean, and how can we prevent them? Because again, every day in the news zero days found, discovered by black hats, white hats, and others. So pretty crazy environment.
Well, I don't think you're going to prevent the people creating 0 days. I don't, that's a different, that's fighting cybercrime. That's, there's always going to be people who are going to try to find new ways. Right. And so that's, again, finding new ways is why you can't rely on a traditional approach to combating malware. So a 0 day is something that, typically when you look at it, if something is out in the wild for 24 hours or more, it's known. It's a known thing. You can go to reputation services. You can know that this is what it's been seen is a particular piece of malware. And so 0 days are those that have not been seen, right? Think about less than 24 hours they're out there. Nobody's determined good or bad. You have to have some way of analyzing it. Traditionally, that meant your endpoint, your firewall, your sensor, your proxy, something says, I think this might be bad, or it doesn't match my signatures. I'm going to fire this off to an analyst. That analyst then has to pick it up and start deconstructing it. What was taking place around it? Basically doing all the things that we want to do with artificial intelligence, right? Replicating that analyst brain. making that determination. Hey, I think this is 80% bad, or I think this is 100% good, or 70% good. And then based on a policy, we can determine what happens next. Block it, allow it, quarantine it. Those are things that you can then define based on what you've determined the threat risk is.
Yeah, fantastically interesting stuff. Now let's shift a little bit to Spark Cognition and your
Mhm.
solutions. Your brand, your product, Deep Armor, cool name by the way,
Thanks.
is out there for endpoint protection. So is this sort of a package solution, and where can folks procure it?
So right now you can get Deep Armor. Reach out to one of our sales team. We can happily get you set up with a proof of concept, a demo, and get you rolling. We offer Deep Armor in a number of configurations, editions, if you will. So there's an enterprise edition product. There's a small business specific version. We'll talk a little bit about each one here. We also offer Deep Armor in an industrial edition, which is really unique. So we can talk about that. And then, of course, we take all that same capability and goodness that we've built into our Deep Armor product, and we allow customers, partners to integrate that as an SDK into their products. So when we look at where Deep Armor came from, it was built from the ground up to utilize artificial intelligence and machine learning. It wasn't a signature-based approach, and then we converted over. Started from the ground up. We wanted it to be highly effective, super lightweight, meaning we've all had that traditional experience with antivirus. Oh, it must be running an all system scan. I can't do anything. Or here comes the signature update. Let's wait for the machine to update. We don't want to impact the user experience. And so super lightweight, low resource consumption on your asset, highly effective. We want you to be protected. Let's say you take your laptop out of the office, as most of us are doing these days, and you're going to go work for, some restaurant, some cafe, or even at your home, right?
Yeah, no one's working from home these days, right? It's all in the office.
Exactly. Or let's say you're not connected to a network, but you're
Right.
plugging a USB stick in, or you're doing something. We want you to still be protected. And that's why, as another first for us, we deployed all the models locally. You don't require any connectivity to our cloud gateway for any type of updates. You can download them off the web if you're connected. But if we look at a recent example, the models that we have in place, we've been training those for years now. And so we'll go back a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about industrial. When we looked at the Colonial Pipeline attack, right, the IOCs that were associated with that compromise, those were models that we had built and were training 6 months before, 4 months before. These were not models we said, oh, we saw this, let's go train the model. Those were things our models were able to detect, even though it had never been seen before. And so we want models on the endpoint to protect when you're connected, when you're not. You don't require constant updates. The industrial product, which is another flagship product we launched a couple of years back, we looked at some of the industrial assets, ICS assets, right? And you say, man, they're not running Windows 10, Windows 11, right? They're not running modern code sets. How can we help protect those? And that's where Deep Armor Industrial Edition came in, is that we were able to build, again, from the ground up. We didn't take the IT product and port it over. We said, let's take a base view of this. We're going to go build specific threat models, and we're going to go build a specific client set to deal with legacy Windows versions. So even things that Microsoft doesn't support these days, we can support. Windows 2000, Windows Vista.
Amazing.
So that we can have that same modern type of zero-day malware protection and application protection on a legacy OS system in the industrial space. And we've seen a lot of great success in that. We've got a lot of wonderful partners we're working with because those assets, if you're not a small and mid-size, but you're in industrial, you need to protect those assets just as much. 2021 showed us that a lot of those industrial systems need those levels of protection.
Yeah, I would add hospitals to the industrial
Yes.
list. I mean, the
Absolutely.
state of healthcare IT is abysmal, and there's just so many endpoints and ports and devices on these IoT devices in these hospitals. It's literally life and death in terms of securing those networks. So let's just wrap it up a little bit. What's your outlook for the year? What are you most excited by? Fearful of in the industry? I mean, what's on your mind? What's top of mind for you?
So top of mind for us is focused on, empowering service providers with Deep Armor capabilities. Because when I look at cybersecurity and, my SOC background, et cetera, things have to be value add for customers, value add for partners. There's got to be a lot of feature set. So from a product perspective, that's what my focus is. But when I look at the industry, ransomware just continues to be the thing, and we see it a lot. And making sure that we're continually expanding our data sets and looking at new strategic directions. So, when we have a data set that's X, we want to keep finding new data sets, even fringe stuff that might give us indications of things that are good or bad, right? We want to make sure we're training models on a relevant data set to keep our efficacy high and to cover a wide swath. And so ransomware being one, empowering small businesses, trying to make sure that they see that there's protections for them as well, and they don't have to be experts. And so, we have our small business product. I mentioned it briefly. We have a great partnership with Lenovo. We're out on the Pro Store. Someone could go there right now and buy 10 copies of Spark Cognition.
I'm going to do that. I think that's amazing. So right in the App Store, huh? You just go and download it like you would in an app on your iPhone.
Well, yeah, it's in the Lenovo Pro Store, but and you'll get the software and it'll get provisioned to you. But what it gives you is true artificial intelligence, machine learning based malware protection on, in a package that's really easy to use for a small business customer. Mm-hmm. Trying to, I don't want to say demystify, but make it less scary, right? They need the protections. Again, they don't know if they're going to be a target. It's really not up to them. And so what we need to make sure is there's something there that they can take advantage of that gives them that high level of protection that they don't have to constantly think about, right? It keeps it really simple. So that's kind of where my brain is at this year. There's other threats out there, nation state actors, but a lot of those things are coming through to small business enterprises in the form of where we're seeing in the form of ransomware, malicious files, email security is another space to start looking at. It's always been a threat vector. I think it's the number one way to get malware into an enterprise. And so those are still top of mind for us and things we expect to see that trend continue.
Fascinating. What about yourself personally? Are you going to be traveling at all, doing any events, or you got RSA coming back and probably DEF CON and others?
We will be out. Yeah, we'll be at those events, RSA, Black Hat. We're looking at some other events, particularly in the industrial space with our energy partners. We want to make sure we're able to keep driving in those spaces and make sure people are aware that there's protections out there for critical infrastructure assets, right? These are conversations we want to have. And personally, travel outside of those, I think there's a Disney trip in it for my family and I somewhere coming up. So get the kids some entertainment. They've been cooped up for a while. So
yeah, it's been a long couple of years. Excellent. Well, yeah. Thanks so much for sharing the insights and frankly, all the education. It's been really informative, and keep up the good work.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right.
Great having a conversation with you, Evan.
Yeah. Take care.